Hello. So, do you feel like your relationship with your partner is pretty unfair? Well, don't worry, because apparently so do a lot of people, and there's actually a reason for this, and ways that you can solve that issue. So, before I go on, I need to define a couple terms I'm going to be using quite a bit in this presentation. The first term is the word exchange, and that's pretty much that occurs when a person in the relationship um, provides like either material or emotional commodities, and they expect that in return. So it's kind of like you scratch at my back, I'll scratch yours. Um, the second term is exchange oriented. So those are people who of keep score in the relationship of like what each other does and make sure that things stay equal. So if you do something for me, I need to do something for you in return. And then there's non-exchange oriented people. So that's just the opposite. Those are people who don't care about keeping score in their relationship, don't care about repaying each other, equalness and stuff. They for some reason they just don't care. They don't think it's important. And then there's underbenefited. So that is when a person in a relationship shows concerns about having more input than receiving. So that's somebody who thinks that they're contributing more in the relationship. And then there's over-benefited, and so those are the people that show concern about receiving more and then giving less. Okay, so my name is Maite Dalneville, and I'm going to be exploring the notion of fairness in a romantic relationship. So more specifically, focusing on how a partner's own orientation towards social exchange, so that's exchange or non-exchange orientation, reflects how they communicate in their romantic relationship when faced with an obstacle or some conflict. My thesis statement is that highly exchange-oriented people, so those are the people that care a lot, have more negative issues when it comes to conflict than non-exchange-oriented people. So pretty much the more you care about things being fair, the less satisfied you are. That is my thesis statement. So I'm going to be exploring three main aspects of this in my personal life. So the first one is that me and my partner's preconceived attitudes about how we behave affect the way we interact with each other. The second is that our own individual orientation, so that's caring less, so caring too much, forms how we communicate when dealing with conflict. And then my third is that our own conflict communication influences our relationship satisfaction. So the way that that we communicate determines how satisfied we are in the relationship. Okay, so my article that I chose and read about was titled Social Exchange Orientation and Conflict Communication in Romantic Relationships, written by Amy M. Pippas and Justin Boren and Sabrina Worsham. So these three people did a survey of 466 partners in romantic relationships and found that concerns about being underbenefited were obviously very strongly correlated with conflict behavior, and that an individual's exchange orientation in their relationship reflected their relationship satisfaction. So pretty much, in a gist, it kind of studied how people who were exchange-oriented, so who cared a lot, were obviously less satisfied in the relationship and vice versa. Okay, so the research article that I picked, I feel like most relates to chapter 9 of our communications book, more specifically conflict styles that are listed on page 285. So I'm going to kind of like explain how they relate. So for example, exchange-oriented people, so those are people that care a lot about being fair, also tend to have more accommodative and non-assertive conflict styles. So that pretty much just means that they manage conflict by giving into the demands of the other person in the relationship, and like an aim to address their needs above your own. So people who care a lot about being fair also tended to care a lot about dealing or helping their partner than helping themselves. Whereas non-exchange oriented people, so people who don't care about the equalness in the relationship, have more aggressive, assertive conflict styles. So it's just opposite ends. So the article that I picked had two research hypotheses. The first one was how are underbenefited exchange-oriented people, so those are people that care a lot and feel like they do a lot in the relationship, and over-benefited non-exchange-oriented people associated with conflict tactics. So being one way or another, how does that influence the way that you deal with conflict in a relationship? Pretty much was their first hypothesis. The second one was how do people's conflict behaviors in their relationship influence the association between exchange orientation and relationship satisfaction? So that's more of like how does a conflict in the relationship to start, how does that influence whether or not a person is exchange-oriented or not exchange-oriented when trying to deal with conflict? Okay, so the data, after their findings, their data showed that higher over-benefited non-exchange-oriented people scored higher than under-benefited exchange-oriented people. So that pretty much indicated that people are more concerned about getting less than they deserve from others, than they may be giving less than warranted. Sensitivity to being underbenefited is one exchange relationships is associated with tendency to approach conflict aggressiveness in a romantic relationship. And being underbenefited is linked to people actively showing their dissatisfaction about issues which they deem important. So pretty much just, it proved and it went to show that yes, being wanting things to be fair is healthy in a relationship, but at the same time, caring too much about that and having a partner that is the polar opposite creates conflict in itself and dissatisfaction on your end and not necessarily on their end, just because they don't care as much. Doesn't mean they don't care about the relationship, they just don't care about things being equal. Okay, so in my life, I chose my boyfriend, who I've been with for a couple years now. We live together, and our communication issues, stem from me being an underbenefited exchange-oriented people. So I care a lot and I feel like I do more in the relationship, and him being a non-exchange-oriented person. So it's not that he doesn't care, he just doesn't believe in you scratch my back, I scratch yours concept. He just doesn't think that that's necessary. So the article kind of helped me put together, it kind of shone a light on how we differ, and that a lot of people in relationships differ like we do, and how our conflict styles and exchange orientation has in the past and continues to affect our relationship. So, just being able to put kind of like a name and a term to how we both treat our relationship helps me in a sense be able to reassure myself, okay, so this is just how I am, this is how he is, this is how a lot of people are in relationships. So I feel like that's helped me a lot. So in conclusion, in short, the findings in the article suggest that there's a connection between people's fairness concerns, so their concerns with fairness, and their satisfaction with their romantic partners. Makes a lot of sense. And that the way individuals communicate about issues of conflict is really important, because one's own attitude about relationship fairness kind of it determines relationship satisfaction. That's it. Thank you so much. Let me know if you have any questions.